Hello everybody, welcome to a video that's going to explain to you the setup, or rather preparing to play the Gundam trading card game. So we're going to start off with the main resource of the game, which is the resource. You need to have 10 of these ready to go when you start a game. So I have here 10. They are basically like its own little deck of just all 10 resources, which are going to go right under on the bottom of the gameplay area. Next, you do need to have your appropriate tokens. You can have tokens which are according to your deck build you may need, but the ones that you definitely need to have if you want to play are the EX resource and the EX base, which I'll talk about in just a bit. You also need some sort of way, and we use dice normally here, some sort of way to keep track of how much damage your things have taken place. So your base can take damage, your units can take damage. You need to make sure that you can keep up how much damage your cards have taken, and we have multiple die for that scenario. Your deck of cards is 50. You need to make a deck of 50 cards with only up to 2 different colors. You cannot have 3 or more. You can only have 2 or just 1 if you prefer, right? So 50 card deck. You have the different types of cards. I'm going to show them to you in just a second, but at the beginning of the game, you do draw 5 cards. Every player draws a card every turn, including the player going first, so you won't just have your 5. However, once you've drawn your 5, you want to look at them and make sure that you don't want a mulligan. There are mulligans in this game, and the way that they work is if you don't want your hand, you shuffle it back into your deck and draw another 5. Okay, now, let's get on with the resources first. So the resources work by essentially you need to flip a resource for each turn that you're going to have. So the resource here, we call this turn 1 on player 1. This is turn 1. I have 1 resource. What does that mean? That means that I am currently a level 1 because I have 1 resource. And I have 1 resource that I can tap, kind of like in Magic, to use in the game. Right? Once I move on to my second turn, I am now level 2, and I have two resources that I can tap. And you are going to be doing that every single turn until you have all 10. If you are the second player, that means that on your first turn, you already have your EX resource out, and your first turn that you go, you flip 1, and you're going to be immediately level 2 with 2 resources. And if, for example, I have a card that costs, and I'll talk more about the cards in just a little bit. Actually, I have one here already. If you have a card like the Zaku here, this is a level 1 that costs 1. So I'm currently player 2. I am level 2, but I need to also pay the cost of 1. So I am level 2, which means I can play the level 1, and I can go ahead and tap. Now, if I do tap the EX resource, if I decide to tap the EX resource, it goes away. It is no longer available for me to use. And I go back to being level 1. However, right now, I can choose to tap my regular EX resource in order to play this Zaku. And I'll talk more about playing stuff later. I don't have to use my EX resource for that. I can keep it for later if I'd rather, which many players will do. Many players will hang on to their EX resource for a good while. But remember, once you use your EX resource, you are no longer have that resource available. It is basically removed from the game, and your level goes back to your regular resource level. So if I use it turn 1, I would basically be going back to level 1, and I can only use level 1 cards. Right? So that is how the game works. You basically ramp up throughout the game until you have your 10 resources available, if you make it to that. Many of these games are not going all the way up to that. Moving on to the types of cards. So there are many types of cards. For example, this Gundam Heavy Arms. This is a unit, what we call a unit card, and it is a level 4 that costs 2. That means I need to have 4 resources out on the board and tap 2 resources in order to play this card. If it is turn 1 or 2, even 3, I probably won't have the resources, unless I went second, to play the Gundam Heavy Arms at that point in the game. But as we move on and I have more resources and a higher level, I can definitely go ahead and play the Gundam Heavy Arms. Now, each of the units have important things going on with them. Obviously, they have effects and I'll get into effects in a different video. But more importantly, they have what we call attack points and their hit points. This Gundam Heavy Arms can attack for 3, and it can take 4 damage. So very important to know that. Other cards will have different numbers. It is very important to know that when you attack a unit, you both trade damage with each other. And I'll get into that in a different video, but basically your damage stays on your unit, and you need to basically be strong enough, have enough attack points to take out another unit. So that is a regular unit card. Next, we move on to just regular pilots. So this is a pilot card, exclusively pilot. There are other cards of other stuff. This is Chang Wu Fei, and it has a level 4, means I need to have 4 resource cards out to play it. But it only costs me 1, so I'd only need to tap one of my resources to play it. This has a special burst ability. If you're not familiar with burst, we'll talk about it later, but it basically means that if it's in your shields and your opponent attacks it, it's gonna, whatever is on the burst will happen. So add this card to your hand. That means if it's pounded in your shield, this card goes straight to your hand. This Chang Wu Fei, it is a pilot. You would attach it to a unit, and what it would do is would boost the numbers, such as the 3 and the 4 from the Gundam Heavy Arms, to make it a stronger unit. So with Chang Wu Fei, the Gundam Heavy Arms would now be a 5 and 5 attack points with 5 HP. And you also get to have your ability that's down here, almost like an inheritable if you play Digimon. In addition to that, your units, and I'm gonna go back a little bit. Your unit cards have what we would call a link requirement in the black part of the card. If it's blank, then they are not able to link. But being able to link is really important. So this one requires a Trowa Barton card. If I have Trowa in my hand and I attach it to the Gundam Heavy Arms, this Gundam Heavy Arms and the Trowa are now linked, and they may attack on the first turn. That is different from many games. So one thing I need to mention now is that when you do play a card, you've paid the cost, it is normally not able to attack. It has kind of like a summoning sickness, if you will, in other games. It is not able to attack right away unless you can link the cards. So if I had a Trowa in my hand and I also play that card by attaching it to the Gundam Heavy Arms, now this Gundam Heavy Arms is able to attack right away. It has rush, it has haste, whatever you want to call it in other games, which is really nice because that means that you kind of have a built-in way to attack immediately if you have the right card. Chang Wu Fei is not Trowa. Attaching it does give it the boost as well as the, let's call it inheritable, but this is not a link, meaning it cannot attack the first turn, right? So that is your units and your pilots just as they are. Next, we have our base cards. You can see this is a base. The base card is meant to protect your shields. Once you've put down your shields, which I'm going to talk about in a different video, this card is able to be played from your hand. You still have your level and resources. And what it will do is it will take over as your shield. So at the beginning of the game, you have the EX base protecting your shields. If you are playing, let's say this Falmel will take over for the EX base. The EX base goes to your trash, and the Falmel will take over for it, becoming the new base, right? So yes, you are able to play a base, even though you already have another base. If I had another Falmel, for example, I would be able to replace this Falmel with the other Falmel. If that one had damage, the damage is reset to the new Falmel. And these bases have abilities in them. For example, this Falmel has a deploy ability, meaning when I play it, I can add one of my shields to my hand. And then if it is my turn, I can play a token. So really solid ability here. But that is how these bases work. And you'll notice that it has 0 attack. It is not able to hit your opponent back. And it takes 5 HP. Your opponent has to destroy your base before they can get to your shield. And it will take 5 before this base is destroyed. So Gundam Heavy Arms regular attack would not be able to destroy it. It would give it 3 damage, which requires another attack. But if you had a Gundam Heavy Arms with Chang Wu Fei under it, that's a whole 5 damage that will destroy the base in 1 attack. Next, I'm going to talk about another type of card, which is called a command. This is a command. This card is just played from your hand, and you're only going to do what it says. So this is level 4, cost of 2, intercept orders. It has what we call a main ability, and if you have a main ability, you're going to use that in the main phase, right? So you get to do that at that point in the game. You can just do it while doing other things. And I will mention right now that the main phase, you're able to play cards, attack, play commands, do all of these different things in any order that you like. The main phase is very fluid. Much like in Digimon, you can do things in the order that you prefer. Intercept order specifically, you can use during your main, or you can use it as an action. An action is triggered when your opponent is attacking. You are able to trigger an action at that point, kind of like a counter attack, if you will, or a counter card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or an ace in Digimon, for example. Really cool command card, but command cards do not stick around on the field. They will go away unless they have something telling you, but I don't think there's anything currently in the game that does that. This card is used and then goes straight to the trash. And last but not least, we're going to talk about a special type of card. This is a command that could also double as a pilot. So I have the choice with this card called Simultaneous Fire. I can either use its main ability by paying the cost and being hopefully at that level and triggering this ability, or I can choose to use it as a pilot here. So the pilot abilities will not be as strong. There's usually no inheritable really, and the boost isn't as much. But for example, if I had Gundam Heavy Arms with this Trowa, I now have a link unit due to the fact that this card needs Trowa to become linked. So this card is very much a card that I can use in either direction. I can use it as a straight up regular command, or I can turn it into a pilot and attach it to a card. The fact that it can do that is really nice. It can get a lot of stuff done. And I'm sure this type of card will be really important in the future of the game. Cards that can do both commands and be pilots should be a pretty cool combo to see. All right, so that is it for this first video. We're going to talk more about gameplay and attacking and all of those things in a different one. But let me know if there's anything that I missed, or if you have any questions. I will try to help you in the comments. All right, have a good one.